think the first panel is very, very powerful. My name is Joy Wang. Actually, I used to work with Eli Lilly for neuroscience, and I have a chance to actually work with a few blockbusters, including Prozac, Cymbalta, Zyprexa, and also I was there when solanezumab failed their phase 3 study. So we know actually the mental disease, mental disorders is a really tough area. And that's why we see big pharma investors actually, they're very cautious when they're moving into this area. Because historically we see a high probability of failure of a testing. And also we see the very expensive investment. And more than that, I think everyone's complaining the slow progress of a science and also the breakthrough. And so that's why today, when I look at this panel, I was really inspired by the 4 extraordinary innovators who are dedicated in this area. And also, they are really fantastic because they brought in the very different perspective of biology, data, and a life experience to the field that desperately needed changes in innovation. And I really love this panel. As you can see, we're all female. So actually, aside from Jennifer, none of them actually originally from healthcare. So that's why you see we have an engineer, we have a mathematician turned into AI founder, and also we have financial investor. So that's why when you see, imagine a lady, a woman from outside of healthcare, take on the problem and then committed to tackle the problem. That requires tremendous commitment and courage. So this will be amazing for us to learn their journey and their vision. So this panel, this conversation, we're not just about mental health. It's more about how women reshape the mental health in the future. And so with that to start, I would like to have some unconventional introduction instead of one-on-one. I would like to help them each to talk their own personal story, how they actually get here to this work. And in the meantime, they can talk about their story and themselves. I will give Margaret a little break. You just finished the first one. So maybe we can start with Jennifer. So Jennifer, sure. I know you are one of the leading reproductive psychiatrists and being practiced clinical space for more than a decade. However, you also discovered this fantastic epigenetic biomarker which predict the postpartum depression with almost 80% of accuracy, even before the symptoms shown up. I think 10 years ago, it probably is unimaginable. So what is really the moment actually you realize you need to move from academic finding really into the real world too and help make changes for women?
Sure. So my story, as you said, really starts 12, 13 years ago when we did a study. We started off in a mouse model, and then we compared the mouse model to blood samples from women that I followed through pregnancy, and we were able to identify an epigenetic biomarker that's predictive of who's at elevated risk of developing postpartum depression. And the wonderful thing about that is that we can do this during pregnancy and be able to say, you know what, you're at high risk, and let me go ahead and refer you to a psychiatrist or a mental health professional, and let's get a plan in place so that we can prevent psychiatric illness in you. And, as was mentioned, postpartum depression is one of the most common complications of childbirth, and it's a leading cause of maternal mortality. I will tell you, though, that 12, 13 years ago, when we had this amazing result, I didn't believe it, and I didn't talk about it for several years. And it's only been with replication. We've replicated in 6 different samples now, and we've had an outside group replicate our work, that this got serious. And so over the last few years, I've been talking about this biomarker work and working with Dionysus Health, trying to bring this to market. I am a scientist, I'm a psychiatrist, I am not a business person, and so this has been quite a journey for me. I'm very passionate about it because I really would like to see psychiatry move from a reactive field to a preventative field. And I have personal stakes in this game. My daughter has schizoaffective disorder. She got sick when she was 15. And I really want to, A, be able to prevent mental illness, and B, reduce stigma. The last panel did a great job talking about the stigma of psychiatric illness and how it gets in the way of appropriate treatments and preventative strategies. And if we have a blood-based biomarker test for a mental illness, I think that's going to do a lot to reduce stigma. So I'll stop there, but that's my story.
Thank you very much, Jen. That's a really powerful foundation. Mariam, I want to start with you next because I really love your personality and I really enjoy talking with you all the time. You have a great sense of humor. But I think you have very special path and not typically seen in healthcare space. You started with applied mathematics and then move on to analytics for Coca-Cola Unilever. And then you also help start up to ALCEDIAG. And then from there, you decide to go back to school in psychology at Harvard. And you join the neuroscience research. That is a really fantastic, amazing path. But from there, you seems realize actually the psychiatry still rely upon very traditional, conventional, old school questionnaires, which really bother you a lot. So what really made you decide to build an AI-based, AI-driven platform actually to decode the human signal? That's really fascinating.
Well, you like literally told my story better than I would do. Well, first of all, I'm a patient myself, so I have very long relationship and very twisted relationship with depression. It runs in my family, so my dad, myself, and my niece. It's literally hereditary, I guess, and we had the same way we felt and experienced depressive episodes. And it's really painful because all of us have suicidal attempts. But it's not a Hollywood story when I'm like, okay, I'm a patient now, I'm gonna solve it and I'll build a startup. No, it was very twisted. As Joy said, I'm a mathematician. And I worked for very different industries, FMCG, investment banking, and then I ended up in automotive. We had an exit. And I was doing things such as building mathematical models to predict what's gonna happen next, analyzing big data, and doing business optimization. Basically, what we call AI right now. So I've been doing AI 15 years ago, and for me, it's not an old field. It's something that I'm just good at, I hope. And after that, I think every AI engineer at that time, like when we're thinking about how to predict what's gonna happen to the market or how to predict how much we're gonna sell, you're trying to think as a human would think. And that's why the most interesting thing is like, I would like to learn the brain. So that's why after the exit, I decided not to go to Bahamas, but go to Harvard and study the brain and understand how brain works. And that's actually was the moment after I graduated and I ended up in a lab studying sex difference and mental health, by the way, how estrogen impacts prefrontal cortex and why women suffer from depression more than men. That was my field of research. But there were some things that actually triggered me as a mathematician and the person from the industry. So I'll tell you, to predict how much cans of Coca-Cola I'm gonna sell next month, I was looking at the historical data from 10 years by weeks, from 50,000 different customers. And that's helped me somewhat predict what's gonna happen. And then I was looking at the brain research. 100 subjects, 100 MRIs, and we're making decisions. Amazing. So second thing that triggered me, we had so much complicated mathematical problems and like different models. And what we're doing in the brain health, correlations. Great. And then finally, I was asking like, hey guys, what are we measuring? They're saying like, what? HUMD scores, matter scores, questionnaires. Like, wait a second, we're just literally asking people, are they depressed or not? And that's how we're trying to predict something and do the studies? They're like, yes, but it's subjective, there is no ground truth. But that's how study works. And this, I was not surprised why medication work only 30% of the cases, why we have so much misdiagnosis, why we have no understanding what is depression. And like, that's why I quit academy and decided, okay, I'm gonna build Brainify.AI. My goal is simple. We're gonna do real data-driven studies. We're gonna collect enough data from different people from the world so we can know how actually brain works. And it's not gonna be hundreds of points, not thousands of points. I wanna have millions of points. So whatever we build there, any biomarkers, any diagnostics, actually will be scalable. So every patient from United States, Kazakhstan, Ghana, or Japan we'll actually have something that's going to work. That's how Brainify.AI started.
Fantastic. And that's what I heard, mathematics plus neuroscience plus frustration with the status quo that unlocked the breakthrough. Really amazing. All right, so Alex, I think the first panel gave us a good alleviate for, biomarker diagnostics area. But your path, your career is very, very unique. You started as a career, as an engineer, and then you actually earned MBA from MIT. You also work with the top-notch consulting firms like Ernst & Young and McKinsey. You joined the high-tech part for defense energy technologies. And then after all this, you decided to step into a company founded by your father. When we talk with each other, really good story you share with me, you feel actually frustrated by spending actually double the efforts. You have to prove twice, both as a founder's daughter and also as a woman. But I think in general, you did a really fantastic job for building this new innovation for RNA-based, editing-based, and really precision diagnostic for mental disorders. So actually, what drive you to this area? Could you share your story?
Sure, thank you. I think there are three things that actually changed a lot of things in my path. The first is impact. Like, I've always wanted to have a positive impact on the world, and that's why I actually left consulting, because it wasn't hands-on enough, if you wanted. The second is problem solving. I still remember what it's like to be an engineer. And like everywhere in the world, if you want to solve a problem, whatever the problem, you need to know what the problem is. Because if you don't, good luck. You're never going to go anywhere. And so that's why diagnostics makes a lot of sense. And we've talked about that in the last panel. Mental health is invisible. Mental health, you cannot really estimate it, and there is stigma. But thanks to biology, all of this is gone, actually. Mental health is visible. It's in the blood, it's in the biomarkers, and the effect it has on people for stigma, it's just huge. And I guess the last thing, and maybe that was where everything's changed, is actually not taking no for an answer. I'm a woman, so how many times in my life have I heard oh, you cannot do that? And I was like, oh, you think so? Watch me. People told me, you cannot go into one of the top 3 engineering schools in your country. You cannot have a black belt in martial art. You cannot go to MIT. Well, I did. So when 10 years ago I met the woman who is today the CSO of the company, and basically she told me, 10 years ago, I had a vision that we could change mental health with biology, but everybody thinks I'm crazy. Well, what else could I say? I said, okay, I'm in. Let's do that. And so a few years after, we do have a blood test to differentiate depression from bipolar disorder. It's been proven on 800 patients. It has nice performance. It's already commercial in Europe, so we already have patients thanking us for the impact, and I think it's going to be like a first step towards a major revolution in mental health.
Thank you very much. I think that's an extraordinary story about a vision and a resilience. So Margaret, rarely actually heard your story from the first part. You and your husband actually did a lot of work in the mental health area. Basically, I think you are in a really unique position bridging investment, mental health, behavioral well-being, and also the women entrepreneurship empowerment. I heard you actually mention you did a lot of heavy lifting work, actually try to increase the capital allocation from 2% to 20% for women founders. And so we really want to hear from your perspective, what's the other side of the story from an investor perspective you can share, and what you see as really critical intersections with all of the founders and also for the innovation.
Sure. Like many women here, I think like every single woman here, I'm a multi-hyphenate. I wear many hats. So yes, I'm an investor. I'm passionate about mental health. I'm a wife. I'm a daughter. I'm a two-time exit business founder. I am. One of the many things I'm passionate about is driving capital into women founders' hands. In addition to obviously behavioral health care and behavioral health care tech. So one of the early investments I made was into a company called Cherub, which is like Bumble, but for deal flow. And it started out as an investment vehicle for female founders to find capital. And so initially, a lot of our funders within that particular, within the deal flow were also female funders. So a lot of female VCs out of New York and Silicon Valley and LA. And so that's grown quite a bit. And so I have a major passion in just getting more funding into female hands. We're looking at working with every single VC is signing up for a pledge that we're working on. We're launching it in Davos in 2026. It's called Alpha. Mariam's actually a part of our initiative at the World Economic Forum. And anybody who's interested, I will reach out to me, reach out to Mariam, and we're happy to share information with you. We are actually working on getting 20+% funding for women by 2030, and that's an audacious goal, but that's kind of how we do it, and that's the only way we're going to accomplish is if we have these audacious goals. So that's my new initiative that I'm very passionate about.
Fantastic. It's a really important job. And actually, you're trying to help to push the bar for the ecosystem, and that's critical for all of the women founders moving forward. And so actually, now that we have heard your story, what brought you here, now let's explore what you're building. So actually, each of you are making mental health visible and measurable, either through biology, brain signals, or digital behavior. And so maybe we can talk about a little bit of what exactly you're building, I'm gonna borrow the words of invisible visible for the mental health. And so maybe we still start from Jennifer. Would you probably talk a little bit more for how your epigenetic biomarker works? How does it mean for the clinical practitioners and also for the new mom?
Sure. So there are a couple things there. One is very practical. We're actually just launched a pilot study with an OB-GYN practice in Florida on December 1st, so this week. So we're going to be collecting a lot more data about exactly how it's going to work in real life. But the idea is that a woman can get a blood test in the 3rd trimester. If she's at elevated risk, they can then put into place a plan on preventing the development of postpartum depression. And that can be starting a medication, it can be being referred for psychotherapy, it can mean having more support for that woman at home. Her partner can know he needs to take more time off than previously planned, etc. So it's a very practical approach. And then women who test for low risk, we recommend that they continue monitoring for symptoms, because not everybody that develops postpartum depression has this biomarker in them. It's just that a majority do. What's interesting about the biomarker is that it is also present in women who have premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So we think it's not just a biomarker for postpartum depression, but it's a biomarker for being sensitive, the central nervous system being sensitive to times of reproductive hormonal change. And this is actually, in my research, I think this is part of the reason why women have double the rate of depression compared to men, is because we are subjected to regular hormonal changes, and there's a central nervous system sensitivity that my biomarker test is picking up. I currently have NIH funding to look at the biomarkers in premenstrual dysphoric disorder again. And eventually we're going to look at perimenopausal depression, at least partially because I've been through that period of my life, and it is time that we know who's going to be at risk for depression during that long time period.
Okay, fantastic. I think what I heard is basically you're looking at potentially this new area of testing move from a traditional reaction to the response to crisis right now more to prevention.
That's right.
Yeah,
I
it's
really
re-
want to move psychiatry to prevention.
Right, that's really remarkable. So Mariam, I think you working on the EEG data, which is notoriously noisy. It's pretty much like a measure brainwave at a Beyonce concert. I think when we talk with each other, you know, talking about it pretty much like you train your GPT with 20,000 sentences instead of 20 billion pages. However, I think Brainify is building the first global EEG data foundation infrastructure. And you mentioned actually you try to homogenize the signal across different devices and also geographic region. And how does this platform work? Why the global EEG data is a necessary foundation for the future neurobiomarker?
So there are no two similar brains in this world. All brains are different. And in our ideal world, I guess everyone here will agree, we would like to see patient coming to the doctor, doing biological tests, getting clear diagnosis, getting clear instruction what medication will work, that will actually work from the first try. Because we don't want to go again through years of trial and error. We don't want to have suicidal outcomes, and we would like to make psychiatry as any other field where it's clear what good you need to do. So, but the problem is when we started doing all this precision biomarkers using EEG, it's like brainwave activity, something scalable, we realized that there is a lack of data. I'll explain you what does it mean lack of data. When they built GPT, which is large AI foundational model, they used 20 billion of pages of text, 13 trillion tokens. It's like New York Public Library if you read it from cover to cover and then another third of it again. That's example. But if you will check what is the largest data sets on EEG or MRI, you will see 11,000 patients, 60,000 patients, which is like 100,000 times less. So it is impossible to build real AI on that. And it is impossible to build AI that will be scalable and generalizable. Because the biggest issue, we try to replicate a lot of papers claiming that they have predictive biomarkers, but as soon as you try to replicate it on new patients, on new data, it fails. So we had to go step back and start building something. We're basically collecting data from the patients around the globe. We make it significant enough to build foundational model, and we already have one because we collected 500,000 patients with information about the diagnosis, what medication they've been taking. Then we built a foundational model that reads EEG as ChatGPT reads text. So it helps you to fast identify either any biomarker or not, either any specific signal in your specific data set. So it's literally a tool for pharma, for clinicians to develop new diagnostics, find companion diagnostics for their medications, stratify patients in the clinical trial, and actually make a step to precision psychiatry. How we get this data? Easy. We have another product, which is actually a good-looking EEG, which makes you fast reports. You don't need to have a technician to look at it, which we sell to clinics and hospitals, and they use it, and that's how they gather data for us, and we sell it globally. So that's Brainify, collecting data, store it, cleaning it, pre-processing so you can use it, and giving you an AI tool that's analyzing it for you and finding the biomarkers and companion diagnostics.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to have another GPT version of a database so people can really get resources for the diagnosis. I think for Alex, we mentioned actually from the first panel, bipolar disorder is a really tough area. And in the history, there's not a lot of success over there. And the most important thing is we don't really have a reliable diagnosis for that. I think you're working on RNA editing-based precision diagnostics for this area. Could you probably explain more how this platform works and how that's going to impact for the precision diagnosis moving forward in this space?
So today, the diagnostic delay for bipolar disorder is over 8 years. Everywhere in the world, so it's not like a European or an American issue, it's everywhere. And it means that during 8 years, the patients, they don't receive the right treatments. And you can imagine to what it does to the biology of the brain, like not being well treated for 8 years. And with our blood test, our objective is to move from 8 years to basically a few days, like a matter of weeks. So this is a theory. Now in practice, how is the test used? Because now we know from the field in Europe. So first, it's used exactly how it's supposed to be used. I mean, the psychiatrist has he or she has a doubt about a patient, they give the blood test, and then with that, they can reach like an easier and faster diagnosis. And so with that, they can adjust the treatment. And we've seen that. And what it changes is that it completely like erases the 8 years trial and error process where you can actually look for the right medication. But remember, while you are looking for the right medication, your patient is severely depressed. Can you imagine what it is? Like 8 years in that condition? That is precisely what leads to suicide. So that is the first impact, like reducing the diagnosis. And the second is actually a little different and was unexpected. And an example is a case study that we did in Barcelona a few weeks ago. A psychiatrist had a very young patient, something like she's 20, history of bipolar disorder, severely depressed. The psychiatrist is pretty sure that she actually has bipolar, but the patient doesn't believe it. She won't accept it. And so she refuses the diagnosis and she refuses the treatment. She takes her lithium once a week. You cannot do worse than that. And she had the test. And now she takes her treatment because she saw the result, because it's not invisible anymore. It's here, it's written. And well, what else can I say? I mean, she's back at university.
Yeah, it's a really fantastic story and a really amazing when we actually have a new tool approach, help people to realize how we measure the disease, you can find a way for them to survive. So I think for Margaret, and you already shared a lot of story for your past, the experience for as an investment, but I think in this critical intersection you're sitting as basically you're sitting at the governance of multiple tracks. So what do you see actually the major shift or the trend nowadays in these areas, and what insights you can share with the new generation of innovators and also all these new founders?
Is it specifically to women's mental health or just women's health in general?
I think in general, probably.
In general? Women's health in general, what I'm really surprised about is that a lot of the investors that I speak with, that I'm surrounded by, really look at women's health still, majority of them, as a niche market, and it is not. It is a $1 trillion opportunity. And I mean, there's so many contributing factors to that, right? I mean, education being the first and foremost, the stigma being another. But I think as a lot of these companies start to crop up and they start to become more successful, we start to see more exits, that's going to change. So women also have 80% buying power globally. So we have, I think, a responsibility as women to educate the world on women's health, and obviously to make more investments in women's health. So as far as trends, I'm seeing, because I'm surrounded by a lot of female founders and I'm really focused on female-founded businesses, I'm seeing, and it's really funny because it's not on purpose. It's actually happening organically. I look at businesses for their merit. I look at businesses and invest in businesses with an exit strategy in mind, and obviously invest in the CEOs and the teams. So I'm actually not investing in businesses because they're female-founded businesses. It just so happens that a lot of the businesses that I'm interested in, and that my peers, my family office, and family office collective, as well as my investment teams and network, are just actually investing in more female-founded businesses. It's not necessarily intentional either. It's just that there are a huge crop as a trend of female founders. And I'm really excited about that.
Thank you very much. I think this is really the world very, very challenging for women. First of all, mental health is challenging in general. And as a woman founder, it's even tougher. And I think so far we heard 4 different scientific languages actually talking about epigenetic biomarker. And we have a 𝐒𝐤 AI Foundation, and also we have RNA editing. Now we have also the women leaders in this area. But I think all this point to the similar direction and future, which is make mental health measurable. And either through biology or through behavior, digital behavior, or through the brain signals. I think I really want to shift this a little more for the conversational, the fun part. I want to come back to Alex because Alex mentioned early on for her story, a lot of people told her, don't do this, or it is not durable. I think each of you take on the problem, actually really challenging in most people's life, but you really have the courage to move this forward. And what is the moment actually you find the resilience and a way path forward, when there's a voice that tell you this is too difficult, too early, too risky, basically don't do it, or not durable. And what did you learn from that kind of environment, also voices, and push through the moment where you can find your own way? Maybe we start from Margaret this time.
That's a really good question. No, go to Jennifer.
Maybe
Let me
Jennifer
think about
first.
that one.
I have an obvious answer to this. So I spent the majority of my career at Johns Hopkins, and where I discovered these biomarkers was at Johns Hopkins with a colleague there. And about 5 years ago, I realized that these biomarkers were replicating and that I needed to actually concentrate on developing my research into a product that can go to market so that we can change standard of care. I went to my chair. I was doing a lot of clinical work. I was attending an inpatient psychiatric service having to do with chronic pain 2 months out of the year. I was running the largest clinic in the department. And I said, hey, I'd like to concentrate on my research. I don't think I need to be doing as much clinical work as I'm doing. And he said, sorry, it's tradition at Johns Hopkins that you're going to run an inpatient service 2 months out of the year, and we don't want you to cut back on your clinical work at all. You have interesting research, but we really want you to keep doing what you're doing. And shortly thereafter, a job application came across my desk to be vice chair of research in the Department of Psychiatry at UVA. So I applied, got the job, which surprised me, and I moved to Charlottesville. And since then, I've obtained 8 federal grants from the Department of Defense and NIMH to develop my research and to make a difference in psychiatry. It was the best decision I ever made. Was this environment was not supporting me or my goals anymore. And so I changed the environment and found a chair who believed in me and supported me in doing my research. And I am so thankful that I did that. And I will tell you that that chair was a woman. And so it was a very good move.
Fantastic story, yeah, that's really excellent. I think that really as a moment, you need to have a courage to tell you need to go forward, you need to try that. So hearing that, Mariam, do you have anything to add on that?
Oh, sure. Insanity is all you need. That's my answer. No, I'll be honest with you. Like, you need to be crazy enough to go, first of all, in the healthcare and start building startup and a mental health care, and then you need to be insane enough to be a woman and start doing it. The thing is, I'll explain, there is like several layers that we need to overcome to be at the same level as men. That's reality. When you meet at the first meeting, you don't have immediate impressions like, oh, she's a founder. No, they look, oh, she's a woman, she's pretty, she's good, looking good, and they're not taking you seriously. So compared to men, you have to spend a lot of time showing yourself as a professional and building this ground. And only from that, you need to start working with other guys. I'll give you examples, and it's coming not only from men, from women as well. I'm coming to a meeting at a private equity, very fancy one, very famous one. We're sitting around it like we're coming into the office, me and my co-founder, who is male. Everyone coming to him and shaking his hands. No one comes to me. We're sitting at the table, and they looking at Ivan and saying like, okay, Ivan, tell us about your company. And Ivan like a little bit confused because we sent the deck prior to that. He turns to me and saying like, it's Mariam's company. Mariam, go ahead. And I'm like, hi, I'm Mariam, CEO and co-founder of Brainify, And the woman at the table, oh, you! I was like, yeah, me. So that's the reality, and we need always to spend some time. So when we start talking, people not taking us seriously, or they have different expectations. Do they have these expectations we need to fight for? Second barrier is that we don't have a club. Boys have a boys club. They have relationship, they help each other, they connect each other, they gather with each other, they talk with each other, they have huge support system. We women failed a little bit on building this club for us. And that's what Margaret and I are trying to do right now at Davos and World Economic Forum. Build this club to support other women, to connect other women, to help them grow. And that's exactly what we need. We need not to compete, we need to start supporting each other. And it's very complicated, it will take a lot of time to do that. But yeah, there's things that we need, women's club, work for the stigma, and being safe.
That's fantastic. Women need to support women. I think for the, as you said, the lady boycott, and this is really important, and I think Margaret already did a lot for that to support a women's society. And for Alex, I think you probably want to build a little more for your story because you already heard a lot of those kind of voices.
Well, if you don't mind, I'm actually going to go into a slightly different direction. It's opportunity. It's true that women are not often or always heard, but we're not the only ones. And if you consider all the people who are not heard enough because they're not born in the right place at the right moment, they're not the right gender and the right education, whatever, you have a lot of talented people here. And it is a pool for innovation, for breakthrough innovation. And when you know that, you can reach out to these people and you can build fantastic things because there are no competition. And that's actually the story of the company. I mean, the co-founder, Dina, she was a woman, she was not born in the right place, definitely not in the right country. I mean, like a small lab in France, we've been told how is it that you succeeded where Harvard did not? Said, well, said it just happened. And so I think in the end, it's a fantastic power because there is this pool of innovation that we can tap in if we know how to do it. And I think all of us, that's what we did here.
Well, in the end, women work twice as hard as men to get the same place, so.
So maybe talk about, I'll come back to you, Margaret. No problem. Maybe we can talk about openly about this. Why innovation is so difficult, especially in the mental health space? And you were all actually doing the innovation job in this space, but I think mental health historically is more challenging than other areas. What do you think the reason for that? Is the investment adoption, data scarcity, or is regulation? Why is it harder?
For me, it's a question of science. I mean, for years and years, the science was just not there. And what is changing right now is that now we do have the science, so that's why we're today at this turning point, having new solutions, whether it's epigenetics or AI. I mean, 10 years ago, it was just not possible. Right. There's a momentum, that's it.
I completely agree with you. I would add, though, that I think stigma continues to play a really big role. And that gets in the way of people understanding what's coming out scientifically. And I think a lot of really smart people don't go into psychiatry and don't go into research on psychiatric illness because of the stigma.
As an investor, I believe all of the above, but I'm going to add one big thing from my vantage point, and that's investment. It's funding. It's very hard to determine the ROI of mental health, period. When you look at other diseases, I mean, Kelly mentioned it earlier, one of the things I can add to what she said with regard to funding, she's talking specifically about suicide prevention, but smallpox got more funding than mental health the past 50 years from the US government specifically. So nobody's died from smallpox in the past 50 years, yet it's gotten more funding from the US government than mental health. So I think a lot of it is funding resources because you can't, again, it just goes right back to measurement. There's no ROI, it's not as tangible. Until we can actually define that and figure that out, I don't think we're gonna see much traction.
I have a little different perspective on that. Combined all of this together. It is about a system. Every time you bring an innovation and you want it to survive, Your goal is to get constructed in the network and in the system. I'll explain. So you have a lattice. Imagine the molecule. A lot of atoms connected between each other. And if you would like to change the property of this lattice, you need to shake it from every single point, every single molecule. And that's how you can get incremented and change the chemical compound, whatever. Same as with the system. You have a lot of stakeholders, established ones. It's pharma, it's insurance, it's clinics and hospitals, it's FDA, it's EPA, it's a government. And here you are, little buddy, who would like to change the world. Amazing, good luck. The only way how you can get incremented into the system is to get as many support from every single player. So you need to do something for them why they would like to support you. So basically, if you would like your innovation to actually stuck, it's not about the only funding. Funding is actually like the answer from the market, like, doesn't work. It's not only about like the science, because academy is just one pillar of this very complex system. It's about if people actually need you. So if you solve issues for pharma, for insurance, for academy, FDA, EPA, clinic and hospitals, and patients at the same time, then you have a chance to survive. And then you have a chance to get incremented. And the reason why we fail in mental health, that it's quite complicated to build a product which is actually helps all of those players. And we don't have enough matured founders and startuppers like who actually think that way. Because most of them coming from academia or coming from just personal experience. But you really need to like struggle a little bit with the whole market to think, okay, that's what everyone needs. And that's what helps innovation to actually stuck in the system.
Great, thank you very much. I think combine all of your opinion, all described, the system seems not really ready or built for innovation yet. But I think you're still here. You're still building. So what helps keep you in the course? Okay. All right. So I'll just go there quickly. So what keep you in the course and also keep you find resilience? I would say if, for example, your innovation can reach to the full scale, what would be your vision for the future, for example, the human mental health in 2030? What's your vision for the, what you have been doing going to build into the long term?
2030 is really soon. I mean, access, I look at diseases like AIDS and cancer and how far they've come. AIDS has a cure. You can treat AIDS. I'd like to see that for mental health and suicide.
Alice?
For me, like the future, I mean, it's not too soon for us because like we're already commercial, so it works and it's already there. It's just a question of expansion. My dream for the future is that there is actually no more mental health. There's just health. Because, okay, the brain is complicated, that's true, but it's an organ, and now we see with biomarkers that you can call it mental illness if you want, but it's still biological, just like cancer, just like the flu, or just like any other diseases. And that is going to be so powerful for stigma.
2030 is soon, is really soon, taking account of pharma timeline, for example. So what I expect, having significant amount of data so we can start building new diagnostics, new companion diagnostics. And I would like, honestly, would like to see the first drug coming out of the market with companion diagnostic. That's going to change the market and will show everyone the proof that's how it's going to work.
So I would like every pregnant woman to get a blood-based test to predict whether she's at elevated risk or not, and I'd like to eliminate postpartum depression as the most common complication of childbirth.
Thank you very much. It's a really great vision into the future. Sorry we didn't really have that much time, and but also we're going to have a lot of time afterwards to connect. But let us I really appreciate all of the women innovators here. They're not only the founder, but also they're architect for the new future of the mental health. And let's really appreciate their pioneer and also leadership position right now to help us to transform the mental health. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you for our fantastic speakers.